Welcome to a bonus episode of Popped. I'm your host, Daniel Hendricks, and joining me are my co-hosts, Ben Wilson and Tanya Holstrom. In the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, we will be counting down our top 5 favorite Irish and Irish-themed films and series. Before we get started, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share. Or if you're listening, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or whatever podcatcher will allow you to do that. So there we go. Hi, and here we are all. What do you guys think of St. Patrick's Day? Is anyone here Irish besides me?
No.
No? Oh, Ben, yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. I'm a mutt of several different European nations.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, let's
Same.
rephrase that. We're all Americans, but Irish by descent. So, and
Yes.
that's only about a third to half, somewhere around there of me. So, yeah.
I will say though, Daniel, I have known you for a long time and I'm so excited. I cannot wait to hear your list because I know that your Irish heritage is something that you're super proud of. And I'm sure that you are going to be the expert in this discussion. And I'm very excited to hear what you have to say and then movies that I should check out that I'm sure I haven't. So it'll be good.
I don't know if I'd call it proud. It's just something I acknowledge because it's very prevalent in my family history, and the Irish were the ones in my family history that gave a damn about where they came from. So yeah, I guess a little proud.
Proud is good.
Hmm?
Be proud. You should be proud.
Yeah, got to visit some of the places where my family came from in 2005 when I went to Ireland, and in fact, my backdrop here is not of any of those places. This is from Southern Ireland in County Cork, I believe. This is it's Kinsale, and it's the fort at Kinsale, and it was gorgeous. I don't know if you can see it, but I got this picture with a cell phone. Believe it or not, that's how beautiful Ireland is. It just comes out really nice, even on a cell phone. So there you go. So yeah, let's talk about our favorite Irish films and television series. I'm curious to see what you guys like. So we're going to do a top 5 here. And why don't we start it off with Tanya? You want to give us your number 5?
I would love to give you my number 5. Okay, so my number 5 is a little quirky film called Extraordinary. It came out in 2019, stars Maud Higgins, Barry Ward, Will Forte, and Claudia O'Doherty. So it's about this lady who is a reluctant psychic. Her name is Rose. She had a mishap in her family with her psychic dad, and so she has fought against her power. And she ends up being a driving instructor, is doing lessons for this gentleman named Martin. And they get involved in parapsychological shenanigans, shall we say. And it is the most wackadoo, ridiculous movie, but it's really at the same time smart, funny, and just super cute. The characters are great. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it because it's a laugh, but it's weird humor, so you have to kind of be prepared for that. But it was lovely.
Irish humor tends to be rather offbeat, so that makes sense. But I've never heard of it, so I'm glad that you're bringing this up. This is why we do this, folks, so we can learn what we should be watching and maybe what you should be watching. Mm-hmm. So Ben, do you have a number 5?
I have a number 5. It is one that interestingly enough, I remember it fondly, even though mostly what I remember is how I reacted to it when I saw it, more so than details about the story itself. But a movie starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman called Far and Away.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the first views that I was ever given, I guess mainly through accident, of the history courses that I took at various levels of school. First view that I ever received into the trials and challenges faced by immigrants during the U.S. westward expansion. And the two characters played by Cruz and Kidman both came from Ireland. I forget whether they came over and immigrated together or separately and met here.
They came over together because Joseph Donnelly had attempted to kill her father, and she ended up rescuing him after he'd gotten stabbed, by her with a pitchfork.
Ah, yes. So yes, they definitely met under difficult circumstances, and their circumstances continued being difficult throughout the entire film. But they also stuck with each other and stayed together. There were a lot of stuff I didn't know about what the U.S. westward expansion was like at the individual level, as opposed to the overarching, here's 10 words for the history books about what it was.
Yeah, it's a really good film, and it almost made my top 5. So it's in my honorable mentions. Interesting fact is the Oklahoma land grab that they filmed was actually shot in Montana.
Oh. Okay.
Because, you needed a place that looked like Oklahoma back then, and Montana remains, largely unsettled in vast areas. So, it worked out well.
Neat.
Yeah. Great film, though. Some great people. Cole Meany in it, by the way, the boxing promoter.
Yes.
Some really good stuff in that film. Aside from some terribly bad accents, it's wonderful. So we'll get to my number 5 here. And I had a hard time putting these things into a top 5 because sometimes they shift depending on where I'm at the time. But my number 5 is 1952's The Quiet Man. It's a film about an American boxer who accidentally kills a man in the ring and leaves America to go back to Ireland, hoping to find some peace on his family's native homeland. Once he gets there, he ends up in a little squabble with a guy named Will Danaher, who's had his eye on that property for some time, and subsequently falls in love with Will Danaher's sister. And Danaher won't release the dowry, which creates a huge amount of conflict between these two men. This is an extremely charming film, and the Irish characters in this film are absolutely wonderful, very much locked into that time period. If you went to Ireland today, you wouldn't see this. This is something you would have seen, 60, 80, 100 years ago. But an absolutely charming film that's worth the watch if you're going to watch a classic film. Now, the downside, of course, is it's John Wayne, so you get him wandering in and trying to fix things in Ireland, but it's still charming. So there you go. That's my number 5. So let's move on to number 4. Tanya, you're up. What's your number 4?
Yes. Okay. So my number 4 is 1987's The Matchmaker. Janine Garofalo, David O'Hara, who you might remember as the wacky Irish guy from Braveheart, Milo O'Shea, J.O. Sanders, Saffron Burrows, and Dennis Leary. It's on my list because it is one of the very few romantic comedies that I actually like. I think primarily because Janine Garofalo, she is kind of owlish and cynical, and she plays the exact same character, and I appreciated that about her a lot in the film. But she plays a lady named Marcy, who works for a U.S. senator, Senator McGlory, I believe was his name, and he is scared that he's not going to get reelected, and so he needs to find Irish roots in Ireland to get his base rallied up around him.
Which they all do.
I know, it's a thing here. Well, it's mainly on the East Coast, I think. I don't think the West Coast gives a crap. But in any case, she goes to Ireland, the small town, and she happens to land there in the middle of a matchmaking festival. And romance ensues, and it's adorable and sweet and cynical, but charming and good. So yes, made my list.
I'm glad you brought that one up because I couldn't for the life of me remember the title of that film. I remember liking it, but I couldn't think of it, and I have like this really long honorable mention list, so that now makes the honorable mentions.
Glad I could help.
Yeah, good stuff. And one of the reasons that these politicians do this is because the Irish people, the immigrants here, are the number 2 most immigrated race in America. Do you know what number 1 is? Any guesses here? Germans. It's no what's not the word I'm looking for? Coincidence. It's no coincidence that one of the most common pairings of people would be Irish and German in America.
Fascinating.
2 largest groups, anyway. Ben, you're number 4.
Number 4. The title of this one may sound familiar. Daniel, you mentioned The Quiet Man. When someone says to me, "So Ben, think of your favorite Irish films," because we're going to talk about them. It actually happens to be the first one that comes to mind. It holds a very significant place in my life. Years and years and years ago, I was dating a very lovely lady. We were very fond of each other, and we were starting to talk about futures. And she said, "Oh, you've got to watch The Quiet Man. This is a wonderful movie." And she's told me about all the neat things about it. And she said to me, and I forget the character's name, but Maureen O'Hara in that movie, she is my personal hero. I want to be that woman.
Oh my!
And I watched the movie, and one of my enduring impressions is John Wayne stomping around, calling everybody pilgrim, even though I'm fairly certain he never actually said that word in the film. But it was still John Wayne, and so it still felt like he was stomping around making a Western. But Maureen O'Hara's character, throughout the entire film, I was watching that thinking, this is what the woman I'm in love with wants to be. This is terrifying. What have I done to myself?
Yeah. Mary Kate Danaher was her name, by the way.
Mary Kate Danaher.
Yeah. And it's funny that she wanted to be like that because Mary Kate locked herself in the room to get away from him at one point. Do you remember this? And then he breaks the door down and grabs hold of her and says, "There'll be no locks between us, Mary Kate Danaher, except for the ones in your own mercenary heart."
Yeah.
Good times.
That line. Yeah, so for me, it is a doubly memorable film.
Wonderful. It's a good film, and if you haven't seen The Quiet Man, it definitely is a view through time at a very different time period. If you're particularly sensitive and you don't like what's the word I'm looking for? Not abusive, but misogynistic men, you may not want to watch that film. Anyway.
Yeah, very different time.
On to my number 4, because we want to get into the number 4. This one isn't really an Irish film per se. The reason it's on my list is because it portrays a period of Irish history that is almost never portrayed in film. And one of its main characters, played by Alan Hale's father, Alan Hale Sr. Remember Alan Hale, the skipper from Gilligan's Island? His father, Alan Hale Sr., plays Hugh O'Neill, 2nd Earl of Tyrone in this film. And the film is called The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex. And it stars Errol Flynn, Betty Davis, Olivia de Havilland, Donald Crisp, and Henry Daniell are all in this. Henry Daniell, by the way, was in the Sherlock Holmes films we watched way back then. But Vincent Price, I mean, come on, it's just chock full of star power. And it's about the love relationship between Elizabeth and Essex, and his lust for political power and the mistakes he made, in their relationship, and his conquests. But the big reason for this is because I think it's the only film that's ever attempted doing the Irish Wars of the late 1500s. And it's actually really well done. You see the English troops marching in through the fog and into the bogs and the through the peat and getting bogged down and shot at in guerrilla warfare and all sorts of things, which for the big studio production of the time was actually quite wonderful to see. I'm so shocked that nobody has tackled this era for a film, because especially after the success of films like Braveheart and Michael Collins and things like that, this era is completely ignored, and I don't understand why. But hey, here's one film where you can see it.
Cool.
All right.
Empty.
Yeah. So that brings us to number 3. Tanya, you're at bat.
Excellent. So now we move from two very quirky, fun films to a very serious, devastating film, and that would be Hunger. Came out in 2008, directed by Steve McQueen, stars Michael Fassbender, Stuart Graham, Lane Magaw. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry if I butchered your name. Brian Milligan and Leah McMahon. And it features, it's about Bobby Sands, who went on a hunger strike in the Maze prison. I believe it was in 1981. Not only is it an exceptional movie, very difficult to watch, really heartbreaking, tragic in every possible way, but it is juxtaposed by just the beauty of the directing. It is such like a gorgeously shot film. Just the moments that the director chooses to linger on, the depiction of just random food and like slightly pudgy bodies, and it's just this. I can't say enough good things about it. It's a very hard watch, but I definitely would recommend it. It is a stellar movie.
Yeah, it is. And there are a couple films that didn't make my list because they were so hard to watch, that I think are wonderful films in their own right. But when it comes to making up my top 5, that's a consideration for me. Like, can I sit through this film again? Not is it wonderful, not is it good or bad, can I sit through it again? So interesting. But everybody has their own criteria why it makes their top 5, right?
Indeed.
Ben, what's your number 3?
Number 3 for me is a little bit of a stretch to call it an Irish film, but the connection with things Irish is that one character says to another during the film, "Oh, blank you, Chucky, and your Irish curse." She didn't actually say blank, but I think people can fill in that blank. This is the movie Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Minnie Driver. Also featuring Robin Williams and Stellan Skarsgård, and everybody was absolutely brilliant. If you haven't seen it, this is a movie about a boy who is smarter than everyone in the room put together, but he's grown up in an environment that doesn't value or even notice smarts, and has lived a life of basically being one of the working poor, and how he happens to get noticed. He puts himself in a place. He works at Harvard as a janitor, and one day gets noticed, and adventures that ensue from there, and difficulty with relationships of various types. If you have not seen it yet, absolutely fantastic film. There's so much I could say about it, but I'm not trying to take over and turn this into a one movie episode.
I love the film, and you're absolutely right. It's chock full of wonderful moments, great performances, and I'd say it counts. I mean, Irish descendants work as well, so
Yeah.
if I can play loosey goosey with rules, so can you, Ben.
Yay! Thank you.
So my number 3 is, I go from The Quiet Man, kind of whimsical film, to The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex, of kind of a war film and romance, to a film that very much is a hard film to watch, but it's so magnificently acted and is so important when you consider the troubles in Northern Ireland. In the Name of the Father from 1993, Daniel Day-Lewis plays Jerry Conlon, who he's kind of an unemployed young man in Belfast, and he gets by being a petty thief, and the IRA starts to get annoyed with him, so he takes off to England, and he and his buddy, I can't remember his name right now, Paul Hill, they end up in a commune with a bunch of hippies, and they quickly piss them off and end up sleeping in a park on the same night that a pub is bombed. And they go back home, and of course, they're hunted down by the authorities and put on trial and sent to prison. And he gets sent to prison with members of his family, and it's just heartbreaking to watch. But it's a beautiful film with a wonderful message. And I'll tell you, if ever you had a moment in your life where something like angered you that it was done to other people, this film would definitely wake that up. And it's beautifully acted. Daniel Day-Lewis, Pete Postlethwaite, and Emma Thompson's amazing. If you haven't seen In the Name of the Father, I absolutely recommend it. With that, Tanya, it's your turn. Moving on to number 2.
Excellent. So my number 2 is Waking Ned Devine, 1998, with Ian Bannon, David Kelly, Fionnuala Flanagan. I hope that everyone who's watching this has seen this movie. Like, you two, and then anyone who's watching, hi guys. It's so beautiful. It's about this man named Ned Devine who wins the lottery in a small Irish town, and then is so excited and amazed that he drops dead. And his 2 besties go to his house to find out what's going on. They find him dead with the winning lottery ticket, and so then they conspire with the entire town to pretend, I think it's the character Michael O'Sullivan, to pretend to be Ned Devine so that they can fool the lottery inspector when he comes to the town. And it is a very sweet film. It's very people-centric, well written, well acted. The eulogy scene, I have goosebumps.
Oh my God,
just thinking about it. Like, that is the main, it was almost my number 1 just because of that one scene. But it's lovely, and it's a great feel-good film. Everyone should see it.
There's not many films where they do something like that, and I actually am brought to tears, and that moment in that film absolutely gets me every single time. Every time.
Same.
Wow. Ben, you got to follow that one up. Number 2.
That's a bit of a tough one to follow. My number 2 is another one that I remember more for my response to it than remember the actual details. But a movie starring Minnie Driver again, and also Alan Cumming, called Circle of Friends. Set, I want to say, I'm fairly sure it was set in Ireland, but very, very Irish, everybody there. Minnie Driver's character, her father has owned a shop for many years, and Alan Cumming plays the assistant who has been taking care of the books as Minnie's father ages. And I believe he asks the father for permission to court Minnie. Permission is granted, and they begin building a relationship, and somewhere along the way, because she realizes her father is going to pass and he wants her to figure out how to run the business. She begins looking at all the aspects of the business, finds out that Alan Cumming's character is robbing her father blind through accounting shenanigans. And the movie, predictably enough, involves a circle of friends. Minnie Driver's character has some very wonderful and loving friends who support her and help her get through all of the drama that follows. And this movie was my introduction to both of these actors, Minnie Driver and Alan Cumming, who had it. I don't know if they immediately became favorites of mine, but definitely noticed and memorable, and have since been favorites of mine for years and years. Lovely film. Again, if people haven't seen this, I would recommend giving it a watch.
Excellent. All right. Well, I guess we're moving on to my number 2 now. And mine is a television series. It's an Irish television series that ran from 1995 to 1998. Apparently the 90s was a great time for Irish films and television shows because most of these things are in that time period. But it was called Father Ted. And if you haven't seen Father Ted, then you won't know why it became one of the most everlasting series in Irish broadcasting history. It's about these 3 priests that are sort of put away on this little tiny island called Craggy Island because there's something wrong with each of them. The main character, which is Ted, was essentially embezzling from the church, although he put the money in his bank account, and when it was discovered, he told them that it was just resting there. So then you've got another character who's his name is Dougal, played by Aidan O'Hanlon, and he's a complete rube, absolute moron. And half of the humor is the fact that he never really truly understands what's going on around him. And there's a third priest played by Frank Kelly named Father Jack, and he sits around. He's got like a wild eye, his hair's all over the place, and he's usually, sitting there with a bottle, and he says, "Drink, girls, feck," because instead of using the more commonly used American version of that, they say feck. So it's great. There are some moments that happen in this series that are hands down absolutely absurdly funny. I don't want to say anything and give it away, because I think that if you really want to watch an old comedy that's absolutely hilarious, this is one to watch. It's by the same guy who did the IT Crowd, and if you saw the IT Crowd, that was hilarious as well. Had a great Irish character in it. But Father Ted puts me into hysterics. So that's my number 2.
Lovely.
And you know what that means, guys? It's time for number 1. Number 1. Tanya, what's your number 1?
My number 1, you have already touched on extensively. In the Name of the Father is Wonderful. My number 1 Irish film. I mean, the actors, you just have a powerhouse cast in that movie. So well written, well directed. The story is so compelling. And then when I was kind of looking up some stuff as I was preparing for today's episode, Jim Sheridan, who was the director, was involved in a ton of super famous Irish films, either as director or writer. My Left Foot, Some Other Son, The Boxer, just to name a few, but the list is long. So his importance to Irish cinema, I think, cannot be overstated. But yeah, that movie was sad, angering, triumphant, all at the same time. I think it was kind of really just a playbook for a perfect drama. One of probably just the best drama movies of any subject that I've ever seen. And if you haven't seen it, folks, check it out. It is worth a watch for sure.
Well, there's a ringing endorsement. Wonderful.
Damn straight.
Yeah. Ben? what is your number one Irish film or Irish themed series? Which one? What is it? Number one.
My number one. This I don't have the year. It was a while ago. This is the Boondock Saints, a story surrounding two Irish Catholic brothers.
You and your bloody rope.
Yes. Who decide to become vigilantes and wipe out Boston's criminal underworld in the name of God. And it's funny, it never hit me before, but as I was reading that little bitty summary right there today, it hit me how close that is to another pair of brothers who decided to help out the city of Chicago. They were on a mission from God. Truly not a parallel, but similar-ish. At any rate, back to Boondock Saints, the brothers Connor and Murphy McManus, played by Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus. For me, this movie is all about the two brothers and how they relate to each other and their banter and their humor, which sometimes doesn't come across as humor. But having a brother that I banter with a lot and our humor, I can see the humor in it between these two, and how they stick together and support one another through some pretty amusing misadventures. And then also featuring two actors who played their parts utterly brilliantly, Billy Connolly and Willem Dafoe.
Yep.
And Willem Dafoe in a role as you've probably never seen him.
There was a firefight!
He's a very memorable and, I will say, unorthodox FBI special agent.
Yep.
And Billy Connolly, I'm not even going to tell folks what he plays. If you haven't seen it, I don't want to give stuff away. But this is it's not necessarily for everyone. I can see why some people might not like it, but for me, this movie is a brilliant delight. And it's one that I am always happy to rewatch.
Yeah, I struggled with that one, trying to find a place for it on my top 5, and it ended up getting slightly edged out, but I love that film. I mean, it's interesting too, that the history of that film, it got a limited release. The studio almost quashed it because it's hyper violent, right? It's a hyper violent film. It's part of the story. Unfortunately for Boondock Saints, it was released a couple weeks after the Columbine tragedy. So the studios were afraid to have it out in the criticism that might come from it. So they gave it a very small release. It was saved in the after video market. So just like a lot of films we do on this show, that sort of got its reprieve there.
Yeah, indeed.
But good choice, Ben. I like that. It's a good one.
That's a great number one. I am highly disappointed in myself that I brain farted that movie existed.
That's part of why we do this. Is
Excellent.
each of us remembers different things.
Well, hey,
that's good. We all balance.
That leads me to my number one, which you guys have never heard of before. It's a 1998 film called Waking Ned Devine. And I have to say that this film, to me, is one of the best films to watch when I'm not feeling well. If I'm feeling down, I put this film on and I instantly feel wonderful, because it's one of the funniest yet surprisingly touching films that I can think of. The humor that runs through it, the thing with the Jackie and his wife Annie, played wonderfully by Jackie O'Shea and Fionnuala Flanagan, when they're sitting there and he's got the lottery ticket and he wants his food brought to him by his wife, but his wife's too busy doing something in the other room. So he starts to pretend like he's got all the numbers, the winning numbers. So of course she grabs his pie and brings it into him, and he's laughing hysterically, as he's circling all these numbers, and she's like, "Did we win? Did we win? Oh my God, did we win?" And he says, "Oh no, Eddie, no, but it got me pie brought to me, didn't it?" You know, in the
Oh
movies,
goodness.
full of charming moments like that. You know, the Michael O'Sullivan who plays Michael O'Sullivan played by David Kelly, um, pretending to be Ned Devine is just wonderful because he's so awkward at it, and he's not a guy who lies. He's not a guy who pretends to be other things. So it takes the entire town minus one person, you know, to help pull this off. And it's wonderful to watch. And if you've never seen Waking Ned Devine, this is the film I honestly believe. If you want a good laugh, watch Waking Ned Devine. If you want a good drama that will move you, as Tanya said, watch In the Name of the Father, because I agree with that as well. Or if you like some good gunfighting, you know, in the name of the Lord, watch Boondock Saints. But there we go. There's our top 5.
Yay.
Good job, guys.
Excellent. That's a very well-rounded list.
Right.
I like it.
You know, it takes some time, you all, to celebrate the culture of the Irish people. Don't just go to a bar and get drunk. Maybe find something else that you can do.
Yeah.
You know, that's not necessarily how they celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but
They do other things in life than just get drunk.
absolutely. So let's, if we have them, I know not everybody does, but I have some honorable mentions that I'd like to throw out there. Does anybody else have some?
I have a couple.
Oh,
Same.
excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Tanya, why don't we go with your honorable mention list?
All right. Mine is very short, so I'll get through it fast, but it will balance your incredibly long list, I'm sure. So it'll work. See, Ben and I are both just doing you a solid.
I'll take it.
So my first one on my honorable mentions list is The Wind That Shakes the Barley.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent film. Again, a hard watch. A lot of these can be hard watches. Just explosions of cacophonies of violence and but beautifully acted, really compelling characters. Great movie all around. And also I feel like I haven't really seen, I won't get too into it because I already talked about other stuff. Anyway, sorry, I'm moving on.
Fair enough.
My other 2 movies, I really on this list mainly because you can't talk about Irish films with at least not having Colmini in there somewhere. So The Commitments and The Snapper, both great, fun movies, highly recommended. And this one is just a whimsical guilty pleasure, and that would be on YouTube, Irish People Try.
Oh, I've watched that. It's wonderful.
It's hilarious,
Oh,
and I
no
would
idea.
totally hang out with any one of those people and try some weird food with them any day. So great. But yes, that's my honorable mention list.
Man,
Yay.
that's a lot, Tanya. I mean, look at the time. I mean,
Sorry, I'll try to do better next time.
Ben,
You're fine.
Ben, let's see if you can make this thing run into the 3-hour mark. Go ahead. What's your honorable mention list?
We'll see if I can do that. Yes. I bring you 3 recommendations from my daughter. In fact, when I told her we were doing an Irish episode in honor of St. Patrick's Day, she said, "Oh, you've got to name these." Alrighty, I haven't seen those, but I will let the world know that you recommend them. 3, I believe, more recent films. She could not stop singing the praises of a movie called Brooklyn. And then there is The Secret of Kells, and
Which is
also
a cartoon, right? I believe it's an animation.
You may be right. I think she did say something about animation.
Mhm.
I am forgetting that detail right now, but I did write down the name, Secret of Kells. And the third she said needed to be mentioned is The Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh my, yeah.
And now, Daniel, as a special treat for you, because I know how much you love these movies, I feel obliged to mention Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, in which curmudgeon Luke's Island of Grumpitude was
Right.
filmed in County Cork.
Right. It was, I thought it was the Isle of Skye, or what was it called? It was an island where they literally had that monk monastery on it, right?
It's the listing I found says it's in the town
Skellig. Skellig.
Browhead.
Wait, really? Why did I think it was Skellig Island?
I don't know.
Man, now I'm kicking myself because I knew it at one point. But yeah, you're right. Last Jedi. Good call.
And that's it for my honorable mentions.
Star Wars Goes to Ireland.
Yes.
All right then. Well,
Irish pew pew.
I am going to power through this because I have a lot of films on here, and yeah, I need to go quickly. I'm sorry. I'll just go through these. There's a film in the 90s. I remember the exact year. It's called Return to Me, with David Duchovny, Minnie Driver, Carol O'Connor, and Don Amici. And the film is about this girl who basically grows up in this household who owns a restaurant, and half the family's Irish, half of them are Italian. And it's a beautiful, wonderful film that's really pulls at the heartstrings. Sometimes it feels a little too much, but she had, you find out she has a heart condition and she had gotten a replacement heart. David Duchovny's falls in love with her at some point in the film, but the big sort of reveal in it is something that has to do with him. So watch the film, Return to Me, beautiful film. And it takes place in America, but the Irish connection is obviously there. So then there's also 2007's Once, which is a story about a musician who's a vacuum repairman. It's played by Glenn Hansard, and he moonlights as a street musician, and he meets this Czech immigrant played by Marketa Erglova. I'm going to mess her name up. Erglova, I think is her name. And as their relationship develops, he starts to hit it big time with the music, and obviously complications and whatnot. But good film with some funny moments in it. The next one I'm going to say is a series. It's a 6-episode series. That's it, 6 episodes. No second season so far that I know of, called Dead Still. It was in 2020 that this was made. And it's the strange adventures of a man named Blennerhassett, who lives in Victorian-era Dublin. And it's around the time of the heyday of postmortem photography. So he goes on some wacky adventures.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Next on my list is 1992's Far and Away, which, Ben, you went over, so I'm not going to go over again. Great film. Love it. Except for some of the accents. Good old Tom. Not only is he the best pilot, the best race car driver, the best spy, but now he's the best Irishman. Come on. All right. So next, another series. This one ran from 1996 to 2001. However, I'm only going to acknowledge 1996 because after the first season, I had a hard time watching it. I'm not going to say why, or maybe I will say why. Why not? I don't think many people are probably going to look this up, but they kill off one of the main characters. And I was thinking, wait, this is the whole reason I was watching this show.
Oh no.
So yeah, I was rather disappointed in that. But Ballykissangel first series, really good. It's a story of a English priest, believe it or not, who takes up in a small town called Ballykissangel as the local parish priest, and ends up falling for the local publican, played by Dervla Kirwan of Doctor Who fame. And it's charming. It's wonderful. The small town. I guess the appeal is supposed to be that even though things change in the small town, the town itself doesn't really change, right? So anyway, something to watch, but I'll never get past that first season. The next on my list is Boondock Saints. This gave me the idea if I ever, get in a gunfight, I don't want the police to find out, squirt ammonia on the blood. Okay, good. Got it.
Dude, spoilers.
The next one is The Commitments, which Tanya brought up in her list. Great film about a Irish blues band trying to make it and prove that they've got soul. bunch of white Irish people trying to prove they have soul. One of the best lines that comes to mind is one of them telling the rest of the group, say it now, say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud.
Oh.
Take that as you will.
Oh gosh.
The next film is Wind That Shakes the Barley. Tanya also brought this up. It has probably one of my favorite actors right now, probably for the last 20 years. I would say that Cillian Murphy is up there on my favorite actor lists.
Yes.
His role in Peaky Blinders was amazing. They played sort of an Irish Romani gypsy family in England, but that's about as heavily Irish as that gets because it takes place in England.
I know. I considered Peaky Blinders too, but I thought I'm not sure I can quite make the case.
Yeah, that was the whole reasoning behind that. Last couple I have are The Boys and Girl from the County Clare, 2003. Tanya, you mentioned Colm Meaney, and he's in this. He and his brother are rival musicians, and they both have bands that are trying to get into the finals of this competition, and they end up stealing musicians from each other. It's a great rivalry. The next one I have is 1990's The Field with Richard Harris. It's another one of those movies that really hard to sit through because it's very depressing, but it's so well acted that it had to make the list. Number 10, tell your daughter, Banshees of Inisherin. Another one of those films that I watched and was absolutely enthralled with. Absolutely gorgeous cinematography. The story is wonderful. It's really about these two friends who are friends because there's nothing else really around them. It's, there's no alternative. And one of them tires of the friendship and wants to move on, and the other one can't understand and is trying to do everything he can to fix it. But the more he tries to fix it, the worse it gets. And it is a depressing film to watch, but it's a absolutely gorgeous film. I will never watch it again. I've seen it once. I saw enough, but it's a beautiful film. And I have two left on this list. I have Michael Collins, 1996, where Liam Neeson, Aidan Quinn, Stephen Ray, Alan Rickman, Julia Roberts. It's about Michael Collins in the Irish Revolutionary War, and it's more guerrilla warfare against the UK. But it's a gripping, wonderful film. Just for like an idea of one of the moments in the film, they had to hand out bullets for these guys to use in their guerrilla warfare, and a couple of the IRA guys end up shooting up this British officer or this British politician on the steps of a building, and the newspaper says that he had been riddled with bullets, which immediately makes Michael Collins upset because bullets are scarce. Don't go about riddling people with bullets.
Oh dear.
It's such a maudlin, dark humor, but it is wonderful. I love Liam Neeson. He was wonderful in the film. And my last one here is 2020's Wild Mountain Thyme. It's about a headstrong farmer, Rosemary Muldoon, who has her heart set on winning her neighbor Anthony Riley's love. But Anthony has a checkered past, and it slowly comes to light. He's got this block that he can't even see the love, let alone accept it. And the film is her finding ways to break through that. It's charming and it's very quaint. So that's my last one there. Sorry, long list, I know, but you guys made up for it by having short lists, so they're yeah. Ireland, Irish films series. There you
Excellent.
go. Yeah. All right. So, hey Ben, won't you take us out?
To keep up with Popped, visit our website, www.poppedpodcast.com. There, you can see all of our past and current episodes, read our extremely accurate and not at all embellished bios, send us an email, read our blogs, or take a link to Patreon where you can support our show.
We're also available on most of the socials, including Facebook, Blue Sky, X, Instagram, and TikTok. We really want to thank you immensely for joining us and supporting our show. Right now, we are sitting at 96 subscribers. So if 4 more of you who are watching this who are not subscribed would love to subscribe to our show, please do it in due course, because then we will hit our 100 subscriber milestone.
Yay!
That would be amazing. Yeah, so thank you guys for everything. As always, thank you for your support. Oh, man. Daniel, I think I am just too pooped to pop.
Uh-oh. Well, with that, I guess we're off, and we're leaving as well.